So you found out you have the MTHFR gene mutation, and you're probably taking methylfolate, but how do you know that you're taking the right dose for you? In this video, I'm going to share with you some starting points for dosing methylfolate based on what you're treating. I'm also going to share the symptoms and what you can do about over-methylating or taking too much methylfolate. And lastly, I'm going to share with you a hack on how to ease into or test different dosages with minimal risk. All right, let's get to it. Hi, I'm David, and I help people reclaim their lives from brain fog, chronic fatigue, and low self-esteem. Today's video is inspired by questions that were left in my other MTHFR videos, and also just an observation that I have seen, just looking at other supplements. So the questions were along the lines of like, can you take too much methylfolate? What is the right dose for me based off of X symptoms? And then also just looking at other supplements, like, I've tried many methylation supplements over the years because I have a C677T homozygous genetic mutation. And so I've noticed that the dosages are just so radically different depending on the supplement themselves. And I wanted to figure out, who should take what dose when. And so I also was looking at other functional medicine doctor recommendations, and they were just so radically different. It didn't seem to be that grounded in anything else beyond like a bias. And so we were seeing dosages going all the way up to like 15 milligrams, and then others kind of going down to, like 300-400 micrograms, kind of in that recommended daily value type of range. So if you stumbled upon this video, you're probably already familiar with methylfolate and L5-MTHF. But just as a quick reminder, methylfolate or L5-MTHF is going to be the biologically active form of folate. And so this is going to be at the end, or kind of the output of that folate metabolism. And this form of folate is going to ultimately support methylation and 1-carbon metabolism activities or processes. So with the MTHFR gene mutation, what ends up happening is that you're unable to convert folate in its various forms down the folate metabolism chain. And then what ends up happening is a couple of things. You could end up with high or buildup of folic acid, which causes all sorts of trouble, which I'll talk about later. You could end up with a folate deficiency, which has its own challenges. And then ultimately you can end up with high homocysteine levels, which in particular has implications for cardiovascular health. So if you have MTHFR, it goes without saying that folic acid is a big no-no. And the reason for that is because it takes 4 steps. There's 4 steps required in order to convert it from folic acid, which is a synthetic compound that's been added to foods only in modern times, to L5-MTHF, which is the form that our body can use. And so when you have the MTHFR gene mutation, you're just unable to really make any use of this folic acid, and it builds up, causes all sorts of damage, like the high homocysteine levels. So it goes without saying that when selecting a folate supplement, you stay very far away from folic acid. Hey there, so I've been mentioning methylfolate a bit in this video, and so for the purposes of this video, what I mean by methylfolate is L5-MTHF. Dosing methylfolate is going to be highly individualized and is going to depend on a myriad of factors that I'll go into after I share the dosage ranges. So as a general rule of thumb, I'd say that if you are experiencing MTHFR symptoms like you have low mood, chronic fatigue, anxiety, hormone imbalances, even Lyme disease, I would say that starting low and going slow. So what I mean by that is starting at the recommended daily value, which is about 400 micrograms. And so, kind of bringing in more folate-rich foods into your diet, and then on top of that, supplementing with 400 micrograms for 3 to 7 days. See how you feel. Really kind of tune into what symptoms are arising, or are they subsiding? What time of day are they arising and subsiding? And then from there, I would kind of bring it up to 1 milligram. And then do the same thing. You wait 3 to 7 days. My recommendation is that you take a dedicated methylfolate supplement, and not just something like this, kind of that has B vitamins and folate. So otherwise, you're not really going to know what's working. And so from there, you can also wait another 3 to 7 days and then take it up to 2 milligrams and then do that up until 3. My recommendation is that if you do not if you're not working with a practitioner, I wouldn't really go much further than 3 milligrams. Additionally, you really need to have some high quality genetic testing done if you're going to go into those very high doses of methylfolate. There's a link in the description below, and you could also check out my video on what is my MTHFR status, and that'll kind of do a deep dive on the various ways that you can figure out your MTHFR status and then understand a lot more about your epigenetics and the myriad of factors that could contribute to defining what the right dose is for you. Just wanted to check in if you're getting value from this video. If so, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more ways to optimize your mind, body, and emotions to get rid of brain fog, chronic fatigue, and low self-esteem for good. All right, back to the episode. So one way to figure out the best methylfolate dose for you is a hack that I actually learned from Dr.Ben Lynch. And so if you never have heard of Ben Lynch, I'd highly recommend checking out his site and his resources on MTHFR. So what he said is that when you are trying to figure out a dose, or let's say you're in between doses, you're not sure if you're, let's say, 500 micrograms or maybe 1 milligram, to use a lozenge. And so he has these methylfolate lozenges, which I link to in the description below. And what it allows you to do is kind of test it out. So you could put, let's say, a 1 milligram lozenge in your mouth and then just let it sit there and you see how you feel. And if you are feeling, let's say, anxious or agitated, irritable, kind of, a little overexcited, then you know that you've hit your threshold. And so this kind of allows you to be in between doses and to kind of test in a more granular way before feeling the negative impact. When you take a capsule, you're just in for the ride. So you're taking whatever dose is in that capsule, and there's not really any way to kind of pull back, unlike the lozenge. Okay, so beyond just MTHFR, there are other reasons, or in addition to MTHFR, there are other reasons why you might be interested in taking higher doses of methylfolate. So, for example, if you're doing it for depression or other mental health reasons, you might want to be in the 7.5 to 15 milligram range. Very high dose, but it's been shown to be pretty effective for people experiencing deep depression, as an example. For diabetic neuropathy, the 3 milligram range seems to be a good starting point. Dementia, that 5 to 6 milligrams, particularly for someone in older age, especially if they've had an MTHFR mutation their whole life and they've never really supplemented or addressed it in any meaningful way. And then for pregnancy, which is probably the most common use case for supplementing with folate, but unfortunately most people have been supplementing with that folic acid that we said has absolutely no business being in our supplement routine. So that's going to be in the 1 to 4 milligram range there. So when figuring out your dosage for methylfolate, like I mentioned earlier, it's not only just about understanding your MTHFR status and just trying out different doses of folate. Some of the more important factors to take into consideration are, what are your vitamin B12 levels? These are cofactors, so you're going to need to find a balance between your dosage of vitamin B12 and folate, which is part of the reason why a lot of kind of methylation supplements that already come with your methylated B vitamins and your folate are oftentimes a good start. That being said, when you're trying to figure out your methylfolate dosage, you might benefit from taking them independently. The reason for that is because you're just going to have a better sense of what's working and what's not working, whereas if you take them both together, you're not really going to know which one is out of balance or which one's contributing to the symptoms that you're feeling. Once you figure out the dosage that seems to work well for you, you can then find some methylation support supplements that have a similar ratio or dosage that tends to work well for you. So definitely understanding your B12 levels, knowing your MTHFR status, and then having a really deep understanding of your genetics. Like in MTHFR, you could think of it as like a 5-lane highway, but only 2 of the lanes actually allow traffic. When you add methylfolate, it's almost like you have access to all 5 of those lanes, but then further down the road, you might actually have another blockage, which is then reducing the lanes by 2. So understanding any additional breakdowns in your methylation cycle is really going to be helpful. So once again, I've kind of mentioned this earlier in the video, but investing in high quality genetic testing or just using something like Prometheus and uploading your 23andMe data there could be really helpful, just so you have a little bit more data to work with when assessing your symptoms, even when working with a practitioner. So a question I often get is, can you overdo it with the methylfolate? Can you take too much methylfolate, or can you go from being an under-methylator to an over-methylator? And the answer is a resounding yes. You absolutely can overdo it with the methylfolate. And it may not only be the folate, it might be an imbalance with B12, for example, but some of the symptoms of over-methylation include anxiety, depression, panic attacks, ADD, schizophrenia, histamine intolerance, sensitivity to environmental toxins, just to name a few. There are some additional ones, but those are kind of like the ones that you really need to watch out for. And so when you kind of find yourself in a place where you're over-methylating, you just know that you need to like dial it back, probably remove some of that methylfolate, probably going to the next tier, which is why tiering those dosages and waiting to see how your body responds is so important. So if you find yourself in a situation where you may have taken too much methylfolate, don't be concerned. You're not going to get hospitalized, nothing too bad is going to happen. You may feel uncomfortable, but that's about it. And so Dr. Ben Lynch actually has a hack for this. When you've taken a little bit too much methylfolate in particular, you can take 50 milligrams of nicotinic acid every 30 to 60 minutes until the symptoms wane a little bit. I hope today's video helped you optimize your MTHFR supplement routine and get started specifically dosing methylfolate. If you got value from this video and like more content like it, hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel for more content on how to optimize your mind, body, and emotions to get rid of chronic fatigue and brain fog for good. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment below. I'm always looking for additional topics, specifically around MTHFR. I know that a lot of you have really specific questions, and it's a difficult journey to navigate, as I have found myself. So I'm always looking for new ways to be of service. In the meantime, may you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you walk this earth with ease. I'll see you in the next episode.